Holy cow. So it's late. It's 12:16. It's after midnight. I just got home. My ears are ringing. I feel totally insane right now because I just went to a concert in Chicago and I just saw Iron Maiden. They were so good. It was incredible. Like, man, they sounded perfect. Blew me away. Blew me away. I needed that. Then on the drive home, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta film a mask video. It's gonna be a late night. So this won't be a super long video because it takes forever to upload these things sometimes. I'm gonna do one. A lot of you are familiar with the good old Don Post skull. I've done other videos out there on my buddy's House of Masks channel on the Don Post skull. I did the whole history of the Don Post skull. I'm not saying I'm the expert on skulls, but I researched and researched. I had like 30 different skulls in my collection at the time, and I just started kind of digging deep with the differences in them and the history, and I did a whole, it's a pretty well-known thing in the hobby. I did this history of the Don Post skull. Maybe I got some things wrong, but everyone seems to think it's all right. So everyone knows that the good old Don Post skull that everyone kind of knows and loves is the good old jumbo white vinyl skull. This is a beautiful example. I don't want to talk about this one. Maybe at a later time. I want to talk about the very first styles of this skull that a lot of people that are not in this hobby probably aren't familiar with. Those of you that know Halloween 3 know this skull, and this skull's been in countless movies out there and stuff. But so originally the skulls looked something like this, and this is like my favorite look for this thing. So the old ones, you know, these came out around 1967. That was the copyright of the very first Don Post skulls. And like I think I was talking about a mask the other night that was cast in Plastisol. This is your regular old vinyl that a lot of masks in the 70s and 80s, if they were cast in vinyl at Don Post, they would be just like this, nice and soft and shiny black on the inside, you know, just nice black vinyl. However, before that, in the olden days, there was something called Plastisol, and this was like a very early mixture of vinyl that Don Post was using in 1967, probably 68 and 69. When you feel these today, they're kind of firm and not nice and soft like these. This is a 1981 mask, okay? But this, we're going way back, and these feel super vintage when they're Plastisol because that material is somewhat more brittle. I'm gonna say it's not like falling apart. They don't crumble, but you probably could break this sucker if you tried. You know, try to rip it apart. That old Plastisol mixture is cream colored on the inside. It's totally different than the modern, more modern vinyl, I should say. But man, I wanted to showcase this skull on this 31 days of Halloween masks because everyone's very familiar with that white one, but not a lot of people out there, unless you're in the Don Post collecting world, know that they used to look like this, and no two were alike. I've probably seen 10 browns out there, maybe 10 or a dozen super nice browns in Plastisol, and they're all completely different looking than each other. This is one of the more cooler ones that I have. I think I got another one. I've got two in my collection that I'll never ever get rid of because of the paint jobs on them. And to me, the browns are the badass skulls. Like I've got lots of variations of Don Post skulls in this collection. I've had tons of them over the years, But man, these vintage brown Plastisol versions they've become very sought after. I think I kind of brought a lot of attention to these over the years with my history videos I've done. And I've talked them up, and they've become a really sought after thing for a lot of guys' collections. I remember back in the day, it was like no big deal. You'd see a brown one pop up, guys, you know, wouldn't really go crazy over them. But man, now that has all changed. Let me get this other one. I'm going to show you something really cool. It's ringing, I could barely hear. Look at this thing. How cool are those? They're just so different than your nice, you know, bright white, clean looking skull. The really neat thing about these, when they would paint these up in the olden days, they had sponges, like a square sponge, and you could see they'd go really fast, like all over this mask with a sponge, flying through these paint jobs. It's so easy to paint these skulls. You know, you got a nice brown base, and then they just, yep, and then just go over it with the cream color. But the fact that you see all of these like sponge marks on this mask, it is so neat. Like, look at that. They got carried away. And a lot of guys, if they went to paint these today, they probably would avoid that. They'd like, oh no, I got to get really nice and smooth and get a nice coat of paint. No, this crudeness is what I love about this mask. So, I mean, that is badass. I've never seen another one quite look like this. And this one here, I really never seen one that looks like that. Mainly because this one has more of a brighter white. It's almost on the, like, looking silver. Some of that, it's almost silver looking. But, man, that nice brown base just makes them look super badass and old. And there's nothing like these browns. Later on in like 75, 76, they released another brown skull, which I don't have right now, where like this paint, this brown color was added over that Plastisol. Remember I was saying the Plastisol is a cream color on the inside? You see that? So the brown is a base coat. On the 76 ones, I nicknamed them chocolate skulls because it looks more like a Hershey bar brown. So I dubbed them the chocolate skulls, and it sure stuck. Everyone listing them on eBay and stuff, you'll see they may call it a chocolate skull. And that would be referring to the later 76 ones where they were actually cast in brown vinyl. Brown vinyl, not Plastisol. Vinyl, but it is a nice chocolatey brown. And you can definitely tell the difference between these and those 76s. I'm not going to go crazy into the history of all these other skulls because there's a really long... If you go into YouTube and go history of Don Post's skull, you'll probably find my really old video. Way before I was doing my own channel. I probably talked like a robot through the whole thing. Just, it's horrible. But it's on my friend's channel, The House of Masks. Oh, and those of you around the Ohio area, AJ Good with The House of Masks was having a big event this weekend. Ed and Marcia from Distortions Unlimited will be there. The Crimson Ghost may make an appearance. It's about a 4.5 hour drive, but I would love to make AJ's event. So I'm going to do my best to be out there, and hopefully I'll run into you guys if you're going. But I will put that information on my Instagram later. It's called, it's called the Pale something. Maybe I could put it on the screen here for you guys. But anyway, I had to do something tonight. I didn't want to skip a night because of this concert. So basically, these are some of the coolest Don Post skulls there are. A lot of people mistaken every Don Post skull ever made to be made in 1967. And that's one thing I get into on that history video is most people that find one of these never knew anything about them. They're not mass collectors, but they want to sell it. They'll instantly say, I've got a 1967 Don Post skull. And I'll email them and say, no, it's not a 67. They go, yes, it is. I'm like, trust me, I know. That is the copyright date of this particular, you know, sculpture, this mask. 1967, Don Post skull. Copyright. So they really didn't start making the bright white ones till 1980, 81. And that's all this information is visible if you study your catalogs, guys. Study those old catalogs, and you'll see in the 78 catalog, you'll still see brown looking skulls until you get to like 1980, 81. You'll see the first appearance of them looking white. And this would be the one they used in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the big jumbo skull. These things came in all different sizes over the years. They got really small, really big, different shapes, different teeth versions on a couple. But these are the old jumbo mold. That is my favorite. That's a whole nother story. But I just had to show you something cool tonight. And this is one mask that you really don't see often. The old Plastisol browns. And to me, that's gold. Like, this is the coolest skulls there are, is these Plastisol browns. And I love the white ones. You know, that's probably one of the most iconic Halloween masks of the 80s, the 70s and 80s, is the Don Post skull. You know, these are sculpted by Pat Newman, and she's got these droopy, you know, eye sockets that just make that whole look so cool. You know, it's not just, she just didn't make a circle, you know, make a regular skull eye socket. The fact that she made those cool eyes kind of droopy is so neat. And what a beautiful, beautiful mask. You'll probably see a Don Post skull in 90% of Don Post collectors' collections out there. Probably more than that. Like, that's a staple mask. You've got to have a Don Post skull if you're collecting Post masks, because they're so damn cool. And they can be abundant from time to time. They pop up, but then you don't see them for a long time. The prices fluctuate like crazy. You know, used to buy these for 150 bucks. I've seen them shoot up like 500 or 600, back down to 300 or 400. It's going to depend on who's bidding the hell out of these things against each other on eBay, and who's watching that and decides they're going to try to get that for their masks. So they all kind of creep up, and then sometimes they go down. So if you're lucky, try to get you a nice vintage one. Trick or Treat Studios makes a new version of it that looks nearly identical. It's going to be thinner. It's going to be, I think it's going to be maybe latex. I really don't remember right now, but the best of the best of the best is the vintage vinyl skulls and the Plastisol skulls by Don Post Studios. I mean, look at those, straight out of 1968, 1969, and there's nothing like them. So I'm glad you got to see something tonight. There's going to be some really cool stuff as we go along this week. I'm going to start digging into some really, really rare stuff. And rare, valuable, you know, some stuff that there's only one of them known, possibly, you know, in the hobby, in the circle of people I deal with. So keep watching. I want to get this video up so I can go to bed. But my God, what a concert. It was insane. Go see Iron Maiden. If they're coming to town near you, go see that show. The props, the stages, that they kept changing the stage, unbelievable. I mean, it blew all of us away. We kept looking at each other like, this is insane. Go see Iron Maiden. They never disappoint. Legendary, legendary metal band. So, this is your Crimson Ghost signing off. It's late. I'm going to bed. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.